Lecture 2 translation guide for the next 2 short sections. Of course, they skip sections in the Aeneid to make the set lines, just to have about 320 every year. So Aeneid is retelling the fall of Troy to the Carthaginian court. So this is him speaking. Okay, so tempus erat, it was the time. Quo, roughly by which, but you'd say in which. Now, yeah, first sleep, but you can just say firstly, sleep. Quite straightforward Latin here. Incipit, begins. Igris usually means weak, but it'd be more weary, as in just weak from the day. So it's late in the day, just like it's late, as in he's telling the story to the Carthaginian court. Mortalibus, mortals. Et, and gratissima, very pleasing or very pleasingly. Spread slowly. I guess you can remember like a serpent, I guess. Over them, understood. By a gift, ablative. Divorum, syncopated form. Divum. Insomnis, literally in sleep. So Aeneas is speaking, in my sleep. So what he sees, look, ante oculos, ante plus accusative, before my eyes, maestissimus, another superlative adjective, very sad, again, very sadly, you can say, Hector, Trojan warrior, his colleague, visus, again, a form of sum is cut out, so visus est, seemed to be present, I dare say, mihi to me, quite manageable Latin so far, isn't it? And to pour out copious tears. Que, so remember that's like putting et here. Effundere, so the que is joining two infinitives, adesse and effundere, to pour out. Largos, so like large, or you can say copious in this case, fletus. So one of those fourth declension nouns which is formed from a PPP. So fletus becomes fletus, fletus. So there's quite a few of those, like discessus, I can think of, adventus, exercitus, meaning an army, words like that. Raptatus, kind of related to raptus in a way, but having been dragged, PPP, away. Bigis, by the chariot, or hang on, by, would be a bigis? Is it plural in form? I'm not sure about that. Oh, by the chariot and pair. So it might be, I'm not sure what the first PP of that word is, but it's ablative. It seems to be ablative plural. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's an ebus or an e, so I'd have to look into that one. Ut quondam, as once. So not quidam, quodam, quodam. It's an adverb meaning once. So you had to say he once was. Que, again, and he was ater, he was black. Cruento pulvere, with bloody dust, pulvus puris. So don't mistake pulvere for an infinitive. It's a noun, it's an ablative singular of a third declension noun meaning dust. Another que, and trajectus. So that is joining two PPPs. He was dragged and he was having been pierced through, literally transjectus, like literally means thrown across. Pierced through, I'll just scroll down here. Pierced through his, now commonly you see is when it's meant to say, when it really technically should be ace. So his swollen pedes, feet, by the reins. Laura. So entis Laura. Now, by the reins. I don't quite get how that is Entis, that would be, hmm, hmm. Bit stumped here. Or hang on. Oh, no. By the reins. I'm really stumped how this is short. By the reins. Let's have a look at that. What kind of vision it was to me. So, qualis, what kind of thing, but you'd say vision, that is Hector's appearance. It was to me for him, you'd say loosely of him. Quantum, how much he had changed, he had been changed, so the appearance from when he was alive. Mutatus, you'd say mutatus erat, so pluperfect passive. From that Hector who was wearing Achilles' arms. Ab illo Hectore, from that Hector who Reddit returns, indutus, having worn, exuias, not a word I've encountered before, it must mean arms, and Achille. Yeah, technically for Achilles, but you just say of Achilles. Well, or Jaculatus. So again, the conjunction well is joining two PPPs, indutus and Jaculatus. Having shot Phrygian, so just the general sort of Turkish area, which can just represent Trojan, Troy. This would be, I imagine, Ignace, Trojan fire, literally fires. In pubibus, into the sterns, you'd say the ships. Danaum of the Greeks. So he's basically saying the Hector when he was alive. Gerens, so bearing, PAP. I guess we get the word squalid from here. A PAP, a neglected, a being neglected barbam, beard. Et crines, this would be, and hair, literally hairs. Stiffened with blood. So together, barbam and crines, they just make it masculine plural. So having been stiffened, concretos, where we get the word concrete from, sanguine, with blood. That are, as I've written in Excel, U acts as a V. So that is the 5th foot dactyl, sanguine. So that's that. Okay, stiffened with blood. And those very many wounds, illa, funny word order here, plurima, vulnera, especially after a comma, which he received around his native wall, so having been dragged by Achilles around the walls on the back of his chariot, which acapit, he had received Kirkum around, plus the accusative, the walls of his fatherland, literally. So his native walls, patrios muros. Flens, PAP, nominative singular, describing I. So weeping, ipse, I myself, vide bar. Seem, I've said seemed. Actually, I should just change it to seem, shouldn't I? Seem. Just make a little addition there. Seem compellare, of my own accord, sorry, ultro, just a funny adverb. Compellare, to call the virum, the man. So speaking to the apparition before him. And okay, so et is joining two infinitives again. Expromere, to disclose. I guess, well, might get the word promulgate from there, and ex just means outwards. To disclose maestas, OLC 3-word for sad, literally sad voices, but you'd say voices representing words. So just to speak sadly back to him. So he says, O light of Dardania, land of Dardanos, Trojan, ancient Trojan king. So um, land of Dardanus and his descendants. So, O light of Troy. O most faithful, surest space, hope. Now, hope must be feminine. Fifth declensions are mainly feminine. Tu crum is short for tu crum, of Troy. Quai, literally which, but you can just say, yeah, you can say what, but which. Morai, vocab 23, delays so great. Historic infinitive, tenu erunt, really should be, hold you back. So he says, hang on, so no, I'm going to try. Seem to call the man to go Sedwood. Okay, so, and then, oh, hang on, where am I here? Sure, so which slaves hold you back? Oh, dreaded Hector. Where did I get that word from? Oh, from which coast do you come? From which coast? Ab quibus oris, ab plus the accusative. Do you come? Expectate, dreaded. Having been waited for. I guess that's, it could be a vocative, but I think it's actually a very funny PPP in the vocative, which is very rare, which somehow means dreaded. Ut, indicative ut, so it can mean as or when, or in this case, how. Then just to make it make sense, how is it only now? Post plus the accusative, after. Multa funera, many deaths, of your understood people, genitive plural. After the various hardships of both our people and of our city, so after again, post again, after, post plus accusative, the various labores, hardships, que, like saying et, of both, genitive plural, of both people, our people, and of city, of our city. Defesi, weary, just a stronger form of fesi. Aspicimus, we catch sight of you. Quae indigna causa, which shameful reason, literally, which unworthy reason, has marred foedavit your serenos, where we get the word serene, vultus, literally faces, your fair face. Ought, or, why do I see these wounds? Why, kerno, like where we get the word discern from, why can I make out these wounds on your face? Do I see hike ulnera? Technically it should be ha ulnera, if I followed the pattern, but yeah, it's hike, not ha. He says nothing. Ille nihil, says he's understood. Nec by itself, and not, or nor. Nor does he care for, now literally that means he delays, but I guess it can mean he care for, me, and asking wana, that should be a V, like sort of vain, useless understood things, but you'd say useless questions. And quaerentem is a PAP in the accusative, agreeing with me. Said graviter, but heavily, taking sighs from the bottom of his heart. Ducensing, PAP, taking gemitus, literally, that's a masterman's word. Groaning, you can say sighs. De emo pectore, so emo is an adjective, emus a agreeing with the neuter ablative singular pectus, pectoris, pectore. So de emo pectore, from the bottom of his heart. Emo literally means lowest, so the lowest part of his heart. he says, ait. Like we see with inquit, put in the middle of a quote, unsurprisingly. Heu fuge. O son. So that's natus is a having been born person, so just a son, and nate is vocative. Daya, from a goddess, so son by goddess. Fuge, flee, and tear yourself away from these flames. Que eripe, snatch away, tear yourself away. It's like saying a rapio, flamis, from these flames. Hostis, the enemy, usually it's plural, but here it's not. Habet muros, subject, verb, object. The enemy has the walls. Troya, so that's not three vowels in a row, it's Troja. And because it's nominative here, that means it must be a 6-foot trochee. Ruit is can usually mean rushing. It can also relate to ruin as well, as it is here, is tumbling. Alto, word order is a bit funny, but it's alto, or would be ab alto if it were. Again, it's like emo pectore, alto culmine, ablative, neuter, singular, from its high roof. So from top to bottom, Troy is being destroyed, is what he's saying. Sat is short for satis. Enough has been given, datum est, perfect passive, to your native fatherland, patriae, so two datives, que et priamo, and to Priam. Si Pergama, if Pergama, so which is Troy's citadel, representing Troy here, synecdoche for Troy, citadel, or synecdoche for Troy, sorry. Possent, could be, you can just translate that indicatively. Defendi, present passive infinitive, could be defended by deeds of war, so usually by your right hand. So here dextra must be a 6-foot spondy, because that's long as ablative. It would have actually been defended by this, as in Hector's right hand. So what he's saying is you can't save Troy, flee. So it's too late. Troy's fated to fall. Flee. So conditional clause with has an imperfect pluperfect disjunctive, but you translate it like you would a pluperfect disjunctive. It would have been. Etiam is even or also, begin to say actually, defended. That's just an adjective for the feminine city. Defended hark. Technically hark manu. That's why it's that's a long A, by the way. Long A because it's naturally long, and also because it's got a C and a D after it. But yeah, and hand is feminine. That's why it would be a hark. So that's the understood noun there. Troy entrusts its sacred relics and household gods to you. Troya. So Troya pen is the 5-foot dactyl. Troja pen. Troy entrusts, commendat. You got to commendat. You got to it's transitive, so something accusative. It's sacred things. Sacra. Que is like putting et here. Suos, and it would be penates, and its own household gods, tibi. So that famous artwork. Aeneas fleeing with his father, and Anchises holding the statue of the household gods. Take these as comrades of your fate. So your fate is not to stay in this Troy, it's to found a new Troy somewhere else. Cape, take hosts, these understood masculine nouns, as comites, or these comrades, these as comrades. Fatorum, of fates, of your fate. And quaere, another command, seek great walls for these things. Magna, muenia, so diphthong, for these things. So somewhere where you can establish a new Troy with the same customs, beliefs, spiritual beliefs, but in another land. And seek great walls for these things, which you will finally erect with the sea roamed over. So having made a sea voyage is what do you mean? So a new Troy, somewhere else, which is dictated by fate. So with the sea, ponto, that is a masterman's word, having been literally wandered through, so roamed over. Quai, which, denique, vocab 19, start to ace is future, you will finally erect. So it's fated that they found a new Troy somewhere else, and that is represented by the walls, which I guess replace the breached walls of the old Troy. So that's the end of one section with just these last 3 lines. Give me a sec. So yeah, okay, so 297, there we go. He speaks thus, sic ait. That's a first foot dactyl. So ait, ai is not a diphthong. And in his hands, with his hands, manibus, he brings out the sacred headbands, afert, transitive, vitas, sacred headbands, masterman's word, and potent vesta, so potentem vestam, et vestam potentem, and the eternal fire, the eternum, and that goes with, so again, remember que is like putting et before eternum, ignem, so the ques are joining 3 nouns, tricolon of things to bring. The eternal fire from the innermost shrine, literally sanctuaries. So penetralibus, it's like innermost, like having been sort of penetrated, or like we're saying impenetrable, so innermost, things that you have to penetrate into to get into. Aditis, so is ibus, ablative, plural. Okay, so the next set of lines, so it skips right down to, we'll just do 506 to 525, which is skips. So I'll just go down here. Oh. Okay. It says forcitan et, but really should say et forcitan. And perhaps require us. Present subjunctive. You may ask, quai, which fates, which things the fates. So it's an understood antecedent. What the fates will have been, fuerint, future perfect. You'd say for Priam, but it says of Priam. When he saw the captured city's downfall, so ut is short for, uti is short for ut, so it could mean to use, but it's an alternative form of ut. So when, indicative ut in this case, he saw the casum, the downfall. So remember vocab 24, you had curus, chariot, cursus, course, or race, and castles, misfortune. So in the chariot race, all words that look the same, but they're quite different, all related to, race courses, chariots, crashing, mishap, misfortune. But here it's about the fall of Troy. So when you say fall of Troy, say casus Troiae. And the downfall, urbis captae, of the having been captured city, feminine singular genitive, and the dwellings Yeah. So and the doorways of the dwellings. Now, so oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. So convulsa is having been torn away. So weeded is just a general verb for both these, and the quet joins the two objects of weeded. And the having been torn away thresholds, so doorways of roofs of dwellings. So obviously, when someone's being invaded, they don't knock on a door; they just beat it down. And the enemy in the innermost rooms intervening. And so queer, so um, downfall, thresholds, and enemy. So three nouns in a row. These next two joined by et, and the enemy in penetralibus, in the inner rooms. So in the inner rooms intervening. So medium would be intervening. Now, penetralis may mean inner rooms. I can't say a word for rooms, but it just has to, I imagine in dictionary must be that. The rather old man, so the older man, but another way to translate the comparative when you're not really comparing to anything is, well, he's older compared to other people, but there's no other person mentioned. You can say rather old. Understood man, literally encloses, circum dat, so gives around, but you can say encloses, but takes up is a better translation. His arma, which are desueta. So anything that's consueta, consuesco, I guess in this case, desuesco means to be accustomed to. So this is kind of like unaccustomed to, not accustomed to be put on for a long time. So desueta, unused diu, for a long time. On his shoulders, humeris, like the word your humerus is on your around your shoulder, I guess. So on his shoulders, on his trementibusing shoulders, his trembling shoulders, his trementibus iwo. So again, emphasizing his age, his shoulders which are trembling with age. Et inutile, like without use. He's useless. That's a third declension adjective, and it's neuter because it's agreeing with ferum. He fruitlessly puts on his useless sword. So that's the object. Kingitur, he puts on. And nequiquam means fruitlessly. So very sort of tragic sort of scene that somebody of his age has to pick up arms, kind of like in the, I don't know, you could say in the desperation of war. If like there have been situations before in history where sides have been fighting a losing battle, and even the oldest people had to take up arms, or the very youngest, because that's all they had left, because all the other ones had been killed. And ac furtor, in the passive, if you look up ferro, it can mean he hurries into the thick of the enemy. In densos, into the dense enemy, literally, but you'd say it can mean the thick of. So into the fray, literally about to die, moriturus. So you could say seeking death. And moriturus is one of, it's the only verb where it's not the fourth PP simply with a UR, because otherwise it'd be mortuurus, which would look a bit funny. So that one turns into moriturus. In the middle of a house, in mediis aedibus, so showing that it's a palace because it's an aedibus, not just a humble casa. So because he's the king after all, in the middle of the house and under heaven's naked sky. Sub, under the naked sky, wait a moment, of heaven. So nudo, I imagine a sky, another word for sky is axe. Is it like an, Aetheris, like the word ether, ethereal, of heaven, was a huge altar, fuit ingens ara, was a huge altar, and nearby a very old bay crown. Que yuxta, where we get the word juxtaposition from, it's an adverb meaning nearby. Veterima, a very old bay crown. Now, laurus must be one of those second declension nouns which is feminine. I know that second declension nouns that are feminine are usually plants or something like that. So this must be one of them, I guess. Incumbens, like when we say something is recumbent, someone who's incumbent is literally a person lying in that position. So leaning on, a very old bay crown, leaning on the, now it says leaning of the altar, but you'd say leaning on the altar. The arai, atque, and the household gods. So again, genitive, leaning on, the household gods, which were, now I'm not sure why this is the case it is, but having been enclosed with shade. So that would be a long A, umbra. Here, hic, sorry. Here, Hecuba, so Priam's wife, and her daughters, et natai, so literally having been born, feminine plural nouns. Again, nequiquam, fruitlessly. And just a reminder that Q, U plus a vowel, that is not a diphthong because the U is always has to be with a Q. And AU is not diphthong, UA is not. And anyway, it's after a Q. Here, Hecuba and her daughters fruitlessly. Circum altaria, so around the altars, or you can say near the altars. We have a simile here, just as, now, just as, where are we? That must be this word here. So just as doves, I imagine that's columbi, going down in a dark storm. Praecipites is an adjective, agreeing with columbi. That's the declension. You can't tell the gender, but that's masculine and feminine because it's columbi. In a dark storm. Atra, so that must be a long A. So ablative in, understood in plus the ablative. Tempestate, the declension ablative singular. In a dark storm, sat close. Sedebant condensi, so they were like crouched, condensed. Where we get that word from. And having embraced the statues, so et is joining two words describing Hecuba and her daughters. Plexi, anything that's plex, complex, amplex is got to be hugging, embracing. Having embraced the simulacra, so statues, it's simulacrum is, I think it's a Masterman's word meaning image. So it's a similarity in a way, a likeness. Diworm is short, again, short for diworm, of the gods. But, autem, but however, nevertheless. Ut vidit, again, when she saw, Priamum, Priam himself, with youthful arms, juvenalibus, so that's an adjectival form of juvenis, sumptis, sumos sumere sumpsi sumptus, having been taken up. So arms that a young person should be wearing, not him, is what it means. She said, quae mens, what tam dira mens, because mens is feminine, agrees, so dirus what such terrible thought, literally means mind, but mind representing thought, I imagine. Could be a form of metonymy, which I haven't written down. O very wretched husband, vocative, miseri me conjunx. So conjunx, don't scan that I. Drives you. Pello pellere, impello, impeller, impuli. Drives you understood for these weapons, his telis, dative, kingi, present passive infinitive, to be put on. So we had a kingi tour before. So to be put on. Or to where are you rushing? Aut quo ruis. Straightforward Latin. Or to where are you rushing? She said, inquit. The time, tempus, doesn't need such help. Does not need such help. So known, does not. Need, there is, there is. So I guess an est is understood. So imagine this is a predicative dative. So there is not help. There is not a need for help. Yeah. So there is not such, the time for such help there is not. Yeah. So time doesn't need such help. Neck, nor those guards of yours. So what else isn't needed? Istis defensoribus. So saw or tor is people who do something. So these defending people, so otherwise known as guards. Or is it eget? That's a very I can't quite put my finger on that, but that must be something. Actually, not having a need. I go agere agi. No, it doesn't really fit, but yeah, we'll just remember, you don't have to know the exact translation, but sometimes there is the odd word which I just can't put my finger on exactly. Not if my Hector himself were here now. So known if meus Hector himself, ad foret is short for ad futurus esset, were here, nunc, but he's not, he was killed. I'll just scroll down to the remaining lines here. Okay. Yep, that's it. So hook to here, yield, like the word concede, tandem, at last. Haec ara, this altar subject, tuebitur, tueor, will protect omnes, us understood all. Aut or moriere, I think that, yeah, that's a deponent imperative. So die together, but she's like, we will die together. A bit funny saying, die together. Having spoken, a fata, having spoken, thus, very common saying things like thus he spoke or thus she spoke, ore, with her mouth. Obviously you speak with her mouth, so you don't really have to emphasize that word too much. She drew Priam towards her, recapit, so took back towards herself, and she placed the aged man, she locavited, she placed the longai womb. So it's like the long of eye womb, long of age. So just the old man on the sacred seat. In sacra, long A, sede, short E at the end. Okay, so that's the next couple of sections. Next couple of sections totaling about 50 words. So just one more translation section, and we've done the first 160 lines.